Hey everyone, Matron here, bringing you another Starcraft 2 commentary. This time a game between Catz spawning as the yellow Zerg, and WhiteRa spawning as the red Protoss. Wanted to bring you this game because I think it is a great example of how the income mechanics and the early economy of Zerg wants to get set up in the early part of any game, and in this PvZ matchup how the Protoss player can sort of disrupt and throw the Zerg player off his game plan. So in the early going, most Zergs at this point are going for some variation of fast hatch, either 14 hatch, 15 pool, a pool or a hatch at those 14 and 15 population counts. And it's really the job of the Protoss player to disrupt that economy and that macro as early as possible and as effectively as possible. If the Zerg player is able to get up a base ahead of the Protoss or Terran, then they can become very difficult, and once it gets into the late game, the Zerg army at 200-200 with all the larvae present and the drones as well, the excess minerals can be very tough to handle. See WhiteRa getting down that 12 gateway and now sending out a scout. He's going to know exactly where to go. Catz tipped off his hand a little bit with his Overlord position coming in. He was skirting the Nexus and the pylon, but he does want to make sure that this is a gateway, not a forge. So Catz going for that 14 hatchery. He has not yet started his pool. And WhiteRa coming in, going to be scouting this hatchery, and again, this is expected in this matchup on this map. On a 4-player map here, Zerg almost always wants to get up that pool. On a shorter map, where it's more difficult to get up an expansion, Steps of War for example, we might see pool first, but when you can get up this hatch first, it's going to be very beneficial. Get your drone count, your larva count, and queen count up very high early on. So it looks like we do have a cybernetics core coming out as the second building for WhiteRa, so not going with any sort of 2-gate pressure. You don't necessarily even need to do that, as the 2-gate's going to put your warp gate tech a little bit far behind. So he is instead chrono boosting one zealot here, usually taking 38 units at a time, but that chrono boost going to cut that in half, or close to half, and now we see that zealot being rallied over into the base of Catz. The probe pulling back as it's down to 4 HP, wants to go join its brothers there and do a little bit of hard work on the mineral line. And now the zealot going to move out. At this point, Catz producing 4 Zerglings, so that's a decent number of Zerglings in the early going. A lot of Zerg players going for 2 Zerglings just to scout and bat away that probe or SCV, but 4 is also a decent number. Not spending too many minerals on these Zerglings, just 100, but this Zealot's going to be able to come in here and try to focus down these Zerglings. We see very smart here, WhiteRa using these minerals to sort of funnel the Zerglings. He does not want to get a surround, as the Zealot will go down to 4 Zerglings, but fighting one at a time, he's going to be able to do good damage against these Zerglings, and now Catz almost forced to pull back. See, at this point, not producing any more extra Zerglings, so just happy with the 4 he has lost one. Now this Queen coming out, it's going to be able to poke at this Zealot, now that it does have a ranged attack. We see 2 more gates and a Stalker on the way for WhiteRa. So pushing out with this Stalker, the Zealot did go down. See 2 more Zerglings going to be replacing the initial 2. And now this Stalker are going to start working on this Overlord. A loss of an Overlord this early when Catz is at 31 at 36 could be devastating. And check out how many Zerglings Catz is making as reaction to this Stalker. We saw 12 Zerglings earlier on, now 10 Zerglings as a few more had popped. And reacting very strongly, now 2 Stalkers in here are going to be harassing this Queen, and 2 Stalkers pretty much the norm at this point for early harassment. The Stalkers are faster than the Zerglings off of creep, and they can also pick off that Queen from range, having a longer range than the Queen, and the Queen also quite slow off the creep. So Duckload Ra not taking too much damage to his shields there, actually pulling back a little bit early with these Stalkers, but the damage has been done. Catz has been forced to create 16 Zerglings in the early going here, plus the 2 to 4 he already lost. So that's a lot of minerals, close to 400 minerals he spent on Zerglings. And those could all have been drones at this point. He could have another 8 drones. It could be 39 to 30 at this point. But instead, WhiteRa now throwing up an expansion of his own. just warping in sentries and stalkers, spending a lot of that early gas. He is on 2 geysers and producing just off these 3 warp gates. So now Catz has all these Zerglings he does not know what to do with. He's just going to do laps in here, try to get as much information as possible. And this Nexus going down, this 3-gate Nexus expand, very strong for Protoss. Not much that Zerg can do about it if they do throw down this hatchery. He's not going to be able to get up roaches in time to take on the numbers of units that Protoss has. So at this point, he's just going to try to macro up harder than this Protoss player can. We see a lair coming for Catz as well. If we check out the income tab, it's 45 harvesters to 32. So Catz has been able to drone up, but now hurting in the army tab, 1125 compared to the 400. So WhiteRa has been able to produce out of those 3 gateways relatively consistently this entire time, plus macro up with an expansion and good drone count. So now going to be doing a transfer over to this natural. Again, these Zerglings coming in and poking, they're going to see the forces of WhiteRa, and that's got to worry Catz just a little bit. We see a 4th gateway coming up, perhaps a 5th gateway soon for WhiteRa, as he will have the economy to support it. Looks like throwing down another gateway and pylons as well, trying to give himself enough room under that side cap. Catz getting out a number of roaches and also working on roach speed. So roach speed, almost a necessity at this point, especially if creep is not well spread. He's doing his best in the early game to spread it. Those Zerglings, Catz is always active with them, spreading them all over the map. They do want to try to pick off any sort of scouting probes, if there's probes going anywhere, trying to set up hidden expansions. Catz does have an Overlord out of position here, and he's going to lose that. That is going to side cap him, 91 over 84, and that's going to spell trouble. He's got 4 roaches on the way. If we look at the army tab, it's 1950 now to 1575. Those roaches from the main are going to be force fielded off. These roaches on the left as well, great force fields. The roaches with a range of 4, good force field placement, not too far that the stalkers can't hit those roaches, but not too close that the roaches can hit the stalkers. So a small clump of units in the center between all these force fields, these sentries doing the work, and we do have a proxy pylon as well prepared by this probe. So WhiteRa going to be constantly funneling in more stalkers, very powerful units with that 6 range against these roaches. Catz trying to come in here and take down this pylon. Looks like WhiteRa going for the kill instead on the economy. The reinforcing units of Catz not able to get in there, as the force field on the ramp going to prevent the combination of the army and the multiple levels here for the Zerg. And now finally streaming in, he was able to take down the 1 pylon to the south, but another pylon coming in on the west hand side here. And it looks like Catz going to be streaming a final few Zerglings and roaches to try to fend off this army of WhiteRa, but just too powerful with these stalkers, the range of 6. And it looks like Catz is going to GG here. So early game pressure from WhiteRa. He did the initial Zealot, which was chrono boosted, that forced Catz to stop mining. He could not get a good transfer over onto the natural here. What a Zerg player wants to do is take about half of his drones and transfer them over to the natural. It's just much more efficient to have 8 drones on each. Instead, we see him very well saturated at the main rather than the natural. And then those 2 stalkers came in for WhiteRa, and even the 1 stalker Catz might have overreacted to a little bit. We saw 12 Zerglings come out. So those 12 Zerglings could have been 6 drones, and he could have been very far ahead in the economy. Perhaps should have thrown down a spine crawler or 2. Those would have helped in the defense here a little bit more than the Zerglings. We saw with those Zerglings, eventually Speedlings did not have much to do with them. He could not pierce the front door of WhiteRa, as WhiteRa did a good job with this pylon, with the stalkers in the front, tanking for those sentries, and the sentries plenty of energy to force field off the ramp. So WhiteRa sort of playing his opponent here in the early going, making sure to put pressure on the Zerg opponent, which is what you definitely want to do in this PvZ matchup. You do not want Catz to be droning up willy-nilly here, perhaps even get on a 3rd base. As we see, Catz did get up a 3rd and 4th extractor here. I'm not sure what he was saving up gas for, perhaps for a spire, as he probably could have done a little bit better with drones on minerals and maybe a few more static defenses. We also saw great force fields on the left-hand side and on the ramp as well. Those force fields were in the perfect position. They were about 6 units away from the stalkers, so the stalkers could attack the roaches but they were not close enough that the roaches could push through those force fields. With the roach range of 4 now, you have to be very careful about your force field placement. You do not want to put them up against your army, as the roaches will still be able to fire through, so you need to leave a little bit of space, and WhiteRa did perfect force fields there. Was able to clean up the Zerglings and then finally the roaches, stopping the reinforcements from the main of Catz the entire time. So a short game here, but I think a great example of this PvZ matchup, how you can use early pressure and a 3 gate there to get into an early expansion and then push out with those 5 gates very strong, and something the Zerg player will have difficulty defending if you use force fields well. So just a short one here, wanted to bring you guys this one. So thanks for watching, and take care.